All
All
right, so
right.
we'll go ahead and get started. I see a wave. And this will be recorded, so you can always come back and watch it. So we'll send that out afterwards. But thanks so much. We're going to be talking about Chile and Patagonia today. So just to give you a little bit of background on who you're talking with. So we've got, actually, I have the wrong name on there. I'm Ashley, Traverse Journeys, and we have Erin, our Chile expert and tour leader.
Hi,
And
everyone.
this is Traverse Journeys. So we do small group tours around the world and we focus on people, planet, purpose. And what that really means for us is like immersive experiences, getting to know local culture, having lots of meaningful conversations. The planet part of it is really like a leave no trace mentality. Sustainability is really high on our list because we visit so many beautiful natural places and we want to take care of that. And then all the little things from like plastic waste reduction to like water savings, every little bit counts as we're like caring for the planet on our travels. And then just the meaningful travel, again, like really diving deep into culture, transformative experiences, and having an impact and a give back. So all of our trips have a community partner, nonprofit partner that we donate to. We really looked to keep income in the local communities and really have meaningful trips in that way. So we will start talking about Chile today, and we have a really specific focus on today's talk is on the W Trek, because I'm sure several of you are interested in that. But I'm going to let Erin talk here a little bit about Chile for a little bit of a snapshot on the country.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin, and I work for the local provider in Chile. I live in Chile as well. Chile is a very long country. The capital of Chile is Santiago. Population about 18 million people, 18.73. The language is Spanish. Chilean Spanish is a little bit different than other Spanishes. There's a lot of slang. They speak really fast. It's really interesting. A lot of other Spanish-speaking countries have a hard time understanding Chilean, so that will be a really fun part of your experience if you get to go. Chileans are really fun people. Chile is comprised of 16 different regions. The regions covered in this trip would be in the central region, the 5th region, Valparaíso, the metropolitan region, which doesn't have a number, and then Magallanes, which is the 15th region, all the way at the bottom. That's a brief overview of Chile. Geography, Chile is a really, really unique and interesting country. If you like nature, you're going to absolutely love Chile. Chile is very long. For those of you who are from or familiar with the US, Chile is about as long as the US is wide. Fun fact, just to kind of give it a little bit of perspective. Right between the ocean and the Andes Mountains. So the geography is very unique. You have a huge coastal. All of Chile has coastal, and then you go about 2 hours and you hit the Andes Mountains. So you have a really unique geography. You have the Atacama Desert in the north, which is one of the driest places in the world, best stargazing in the world also. You have Patagonia at the bottom and a whole lot to explore in between.
And these are just a little of like the climate zones. So, we get a lot of questions about like the weather and the climate. And remember, it's in the southern hemisphere. So we're going to be flipped on our seasons there. So like as we're enjoying summer here in the northern hemisphere, it's actually winter in the southern hemisphere. So that's something to be thinking about as you're planning your travels. And these are some of the photos of what Erin was just talking about, like that really dry, arid desert. We've got like the central lush valley area where there's like wine regions and coast. I mean, you have coast all along, but it's going to look different places. And then of course, south, where we're going to be taking you today on like some of our discussions in Patagonia, which is, as you can see, absolutely incredible landscapes. So just talking a little bit about the history. Erin, do you want to talk about it or do you want me to?
If you want to go for it, I can jump in with anything I have to add.
Yeah, perfect. So this is just a very brief history to help orient you, very not comprehensive, but many of you may have heard of like the Incan culture in South America, a lot of Andean cultures. So like the very base foundation prior to European colonization was related to that entire Incan network that like expanded throughout South America and many, many different tribes. throughout. And when Spain came in and colonized in the mid 16th century, that's when things started changing in terms of like populations and the different kinds of tribes that were still living in different places. And then fast forward a few centuries, Chile, as much of South America, gained independence from Spain over time. There were many revolutions, many different organizations of the countries, I guess you could say, in South America. And it got its first independence in 1818. And then many of you have maybe heard of like the 1970s and the dictatorships. In that whole era, there's a lot of history. Really encourage. We have some great books that I'll share with you that can dive deeper into that history that led ultimately to a new referendum in the 80s. And since then has been more or less like the same in terms of like government structure. So it is one of South America's most like economically and socially stable nations. It's very prosperous. As you can see this picture of Santiago, like very beautiful. Erin, do you want to add anything to that extremely brief history of Chile?
No, that was a really great overview. And on your trip as well, you'll learn a little bit more about the history specific to Patagonia and Magallanes. You have a, a lot of Europeans that were invited to come over and inhabit these very vast and remote lands. So you have a lot of Croatian descent mixed with native descent. It's it's an interesting history that you'll get to learn more about.
And here are some like pictures, very colorful. I mean, like Latin America in general has so much vibrancy to it. So that's something that I always love when in that region. So speaking a little bit about culture and values, we like to talk about cultural education a lot in our trips. And one thing that is like a common theme through a lot of Latin America is this emphasis on like family and community. This is really indicative of what we call like a collectivist culture, when it's about we rather than me, like thinking in those broader terms.
Yeah.
And so you'll see, and Erin, I'll let you chime in about it too, but you'll see it's a very like community oriented culture, whether you're like eating or doing activities together or doing a sport, like that's something that's very highly valued. Erin, do you want to add?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about living in Chile is Chileans just love sharing. It's such a fun culture and everything is shared. Meals are shared. Like instead of if you were like to go have some drinks at home or whatever, instead of everyone having their own beer or their own steak, everyone will share the same beer and then it's done and then you get another one and everyone kind of when they have a barbecue rather than everyone sitting down with their own burger or their own steak. They cut it all up and everyone and shares. It's just such a beautiful and fun thing. And the Chileans are very vibrant and fun people as well.
Yeah, and you'll also see something that's really cool, this mix of modern and tradition. And again, this is another theme that you see in a lot of places in Latin America because there are these really strong traditions and values that like really pre-colonization, like a connection to nature and a connection to the land. A lot of like traditions that might be upheld that I think you would see a lot of in Patagonia, especially, but it's also a modern culture, which you very much see in Santiago as well. So Erin, I'll let you add on to that.
Yeah, exactly. You really do see a mix of both. Chile is very similar to a lot of the countries in the Northern Hemisphere, very similar to how things operate in the United States. However, it's very visible to see the way that things worked before.
Yeah. And on our trip, we also really like to highlight, the foundation and groundwork of this region of Latin America, which is its indigenous people, and they still hold traditions and take care of the land. And it's something that we work to highlight and protect. And so that's a really beautiful piece of Chilean culture that you get to experience while you're down there.
Yeah, and also a very important piece. It's nice that you bring that up. The first picture at the top are the Mapuche, who are their culture is still very strong and standing today, which is a really beautiful thing. Sadly, that's not the case in most of Chile. But the Mapuches are actually still fighting one of the longest wars in the history of the world. And very strong. They live in the Araucanía region of Chile, just north of the Patagonian border. And the second picture, I believe, are women from the San Pedro de Atacama area. but I don't.
Textiles are very big in indigenous culture, as you can see, like in this photo, like really beautiful, vibrant textiles.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it wouldn't be Chile or it wouldn't be Latin America without some festivals and celebration, you know, full of color, full of music and dancing. Erin, do you have any favorite festivals or celebrations?
Probably the 18, which is their Independence Day. It's a really big deal. You get like 5 days of festivities. Everyone hanging out in the streets. They do this thing called a ramada, where everyone goes to have fun and dance dance cueco, which is the traditional dance. That's probably my favorite. But we have so many holidays in Chile. It's incredible. Lots to celebrate.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, we're going to take you guys on a little trip. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the trip that we do and answer a lot of questions about tips for preparing. So whether or not you're planning to travel with us, you can use this information as you gear up to like hike the W, trek. So just a little bit about traverse itineraries in general. Like we tend toward like locally owned boutique accommodations. We typically include in-country transportation in this particular itinerary. You also have like a one-way domestic flight. You have a local guide or guides throughout the trip. And of course, we focus on really immersive cultural experiences. So not just hiking, but like talking with your guide and your porters and getting to know other people on the trail. And like, you know, we have like a cooking class. And so there are a lot of really immersive experiences. We always include breakfast and then more meals like a welcome dinner and a farewell dinner. And in this case, your camping and hiking meals. And then we'll talk more about our community partners. So every Traverse trip, we have a nonprofit community partner that we get to learn about their projects in the community that is really like a force for change and good in that community, buying for it. And a donation from the trip goes to them. And then we focus on small group experiences. So it's really, really close and intimate group. So just a little overview of this particular itinerary. Actually, Erin, I'll let you take this one and just do like the quick overview, and then we have a more in-depth day by day for you guys.
Mm-hmm. So you'll start with your arrival into the international airport in Santiago, spend one night in Santiago on the town, and then we're going to move you to a little bit more fun and exciting city of Valparaíso. On the way to Valparaíso, you're going to pass by the Casablanca Valley, which is a famous winemaking valley. Wines in Chile are incredible and extremely affordable. So you'll get to enjoy some wine before heading to Valparaíso, which is a very eclectic and bohemian port city. A lot of really great history there. And it's just a very, very fun and vibrant city, perfect for wandering around and just enjoying the vibes. In Valparaíso, we have planned a cooking class with one of our partners there. It's a really fun and intimate experience. You'll get to learn how to cook a couple Chilean dishes. And then, like I said, just enjoying the eclectic street art vibes. After Valparaíso, this is in the central region. Valparaíso is about 2 hours from Santiago. From there, you'll head back to the airport to fly down to Patagonia. So you'll be, as you can see on the map, skipping a very large portion of Chile to the extreme south. Puerto Natales is the gateway to Torres del Paine National Park. It is the nearest town because Patagonia is so vast. Our neighboring town, for instance, in Puerto Natales is 3 hours away. There's not much in between. The national park is 1.5 to 2 hours, kind of depending on what sector you'll be going to. From Puerto Natales, it's a great base to meet your guide, any last minute, anything that happens if you forgot a hat, you can go buy a hat, etc. From there is when you would head to do the W trek. The W trek that we have planned for you is a 4-day trek. It is the complete W trek, which is essentially a 4-day circuit. It's in the shape of a W. That's why they call it the W. And we're going to dive a little bit more into those details. The trek ultimately ends with a glacier boat cruise in front of Glacier Gray, which is a part of the southern Patagonian ice field, and then back to Puerto Natales before you depart.
Yeah, exactly. And also just to add to that, so you'll have, like, if you're traveling with us, you have a guide from like the very beginning of the trip who's along with you, and then an expert hiking guide as well. So like once we get to Patagonia.
Yeah.
So here's kind of what like is included for the hiking portion of it, because we want to make sure everyone is safe and prepared and knows what's happening like for the trek itself. So like a very important piece of that is always the trip briefing, which will happen in Natales. And you'll be camping for 3 nights, which we'll talk more about in depth. And then, as I mentioned, like this is fully guided. There are some cases in which people can do self-guided versions of the W Trek. Like we have a guide with you the whole time. So that's kind of just a few notes on that. And then Erin, do you want to take us through, we're going to back up to the beginning and take us through some of more of the details of some of these places?
Sure. Santiago is the capital city. Like I said, it's where the international airport is. It's sort of an unavoidable stop in Chile. You have a lot of unique architecture. It butts up against the Andes Mountains. When you're flying in or out, look out the window because it's really impressive. And then there you have a few highlights in the city.
Yeah, and we've designed it so that you basically have like a full day in Santiago because most flights from the States will arrive in the morning. And so you can like, we don't officially start until the evening, but I mean, we'll pick you up at the airport, but like we'll have our welcome dinner in the evening. So it's a great way to have a day. You could always come a day earlier if you wanted to too, but like Santiago as a city, generally like a day is good to see like the main sites you might want to go for a nice long walk, maybe hit a couple of museums. And then we get into the valley.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So on the following day, en route to Valparaíso, we'll be stopping at the Casablanca Valley for some wine tasting. The Casablanca Valley is a cool climate valley, so it's actually very famous for its white wines. However, there's a lot of experimental reds coming out of this valley as well. And we have some really wonderful winery partners there. It's a perfect introduction to Chilean wine. The main grapes grown in Chile are actually Carmenere, which is a famous lost grape from France. And then after that, Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, and of the white, Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay.
More wine photos.
More wine. Yeah. If you like wine, you've come to the right country. And then moving on to Valparaiso, like I said, it's a very eclectic and bohemian town, known for having a lot of famous artists, poets, from back in the day until now. During your time there, like we said, we'll be doing a cooking class. You're actually going to have a market tour in the morning where you'll go to the local market. The market in Valparaiso is very, very vibrant. It's really a unique experience because as tourists, sometimes you're just kind of brought from place to place. This is a very, very local experience that you'll have. And our partners there are also really, really wonderful. I'm sure they'll teach you a little bit of Chilean slang as well.
Always good to know the local slang. More pictures of Valparaiso, and then like the cooking class here. I always love going to the markets and seeing like fruits and vegetables that I never knew existed and like how do you use them. So one of my favorites.
So fresh and so cheap, and just, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Heading down to Puerto Natales again, the gateway to Torres del Paine. That's a really good point on the slide that says it's less touristy. It's still, this town for some reason has just been able to maintain the small town vibe. It's a very, very tiny town that makes most of its money from tourism. So most people work really, really hard in the summer and then kind of hibernate in the winter. Very little daylight in the winter. And then there's also a lot of salmon farming nearby. Torres del Paine is where the W Trek takes place. Maybe you've seen photos of this beautiful massif before. The photos that you're looking at, the trek goes along the interior of those mountains, kind of bordering along the edge. These are panoramic views, which you might see when you're coming in or out on the bus.
And as we had mentioned, so like the community partner that we support here, the Torres del Paine Legacy Fund, they focus on reforestation and sustainability, but also community initiatives. So like engaging locals, supporting indigenous communities, because they are so critical to like preserving the landscape, preserving the history, all of those oral stories that we want to keep and thrive. And so that's a really important piece and a really cool piece to be able to like chat with them and learn about their initiatives. And a portion of like the trip sales goes directly to that.
They're incredible. They're my favorites in the area, and this park would not be in the state that it's in without them. Sadly, the government help isn't huge, and so all of the kind of reforestation and trail maintenance and all of that is coming from private donations, and the Legacy Fund is just always there, improving the park, maintaining it.
Yeah. Awesome. So now let's talk about like the day-to-day on the hike itself. So Erin, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah. So this is day one of the W Trek. Maybe you've also seen this photo before. If you search Torres del Paine, this is the most iconic viewpoint. It's a hike called Base Torres. And it's about an 8-hour hike. It's the most demanding hike of the entire trek. So you'll get your legs nice and tired right away. And it is totally 100% worth any difficulty going up. So the first day you start at the base of the mountain where the camp will be. You can hike with just a day pack, which is really, really nice. That's part of the details if you have questions later on that we can run through. Throughout the trek, some of the time you'll have to hike with all of the belongings. We do encourage you to pack light, and we have a suggested packing list. However, there are certain sections of the trail that you'll be able to hike with just a day pack, this being one of them, which is really nice because it is a more demanding hike. You'll hike up Almirante Nieto. You'll see like that says views of Lake Nordenskjold, which you'll be hiking along the following day as well. And you'll be rewarded with this beautiful glacial lagoon at the base of the 3 granite towers. The second day is hiking along Lake Nordenskjold between the central sector and Cuernos. Cuernos is the name of those funky little mountains that have 3 different kind of colors. Cuernos translates to horns in Spanish. Because they kind of look like bull horns, I guess. This is a little bit of an easier day. The really nice thing about the W Trek is you, just by chance, where all the camps are built, you have a long day and then you have a shorter day, and then you have a longer day and then you have a shorter day. So that kind of helps keep a nice pace and allowing you to rest. The other thing is you have a lot of daylight the time of year that you'll be coming. So there really is no rush. We do like to leave in the morning for the hikes just to take advantage of the day. But when you have a shorter day, you get to camp and you can just kind of relax and do as you please, read a book, take a nap, rest your feet. So this is a shorter day. From Central to Cuernos or Frances, they're in the neighboring sector. Very, very beautiful hike. If you have sun or rain, this day is beautiful.
And then, yeah, day 3. Yeah.
Day 3 is the French Valley, another very epic day of hiking. A little bit more challenging. The other day is a little bit longer. It's about a 7-hour hike on average. And I don't really want to spoil it, but it is a very, very beautiful valley with views of the hanging French glacier. You're approaching Pine Grande, which is another large mountain. And then you'll be camping at the base of Pine Grande at a campground called Pine Grande.
Right.
And the last day is hiking out towards Glacier Gray. So this is about another 4-hour hike. So you have a little bit of a shorter day. And what we call a Patagonian flat, which is not flat. It's kind of up and down and up and down. So if you're not used to mountains, definitely work on some training your legs a little bit before you come. And yeah, this day is going to start from Refugio Pine Grande and out to Refugio Gray. About a 4-hour hike, and there you meet a boat that comes around the lake, and it will pick you all up, and then it takes you in front of the glacier for really, really up close views. Glacier Gray is 27 kilometers long. It's a tongue coming off of the southern Patagonian ice field. Very, very, very impressive, and a perfect way to end your trek.
Yeah, exactly. And we have some more pictures for you. You can see that boat, as Erin was mentioning. Yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about like the refugios and like how you spend your nights. And yeah, so actually, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the camping experience, Erin?
Sure. Yeah, so the way that it's set up is sort of for you to have the best and easiest experience. When you arrive to each camp, your tent and sleeping mats, so your camping equipment, it's included and it will all be pre-assembled. So you do not need to set up, take down, carry with you any of that equipment. You'll just be carrying your sleeping bags. Sleeping bags you can bring from home if you have one that's really compact and that you like, or you can also rent locally, or maybe we'll discuss a way to provide those. That's the only part that you'll be required to carry. The campings are all alongside what we call a refugio, which is essentially a lodge. This hike goes backcountry, lodge to lodge. There's accommodations inside the lodge that some people stay in, which are all shared dormitory style. And then there's the camping. I personally really love the camping. It's just a little bit more private, and why not if you're out in a national park. The Like I said, the camping is all pre-assembled, and then your meals are served inside of the refugio. The meals, you'll have your dinner inside of the refugio, and then your breakfast in the morning. When you finish breakfast, they hand you a packed lunch to bring on the trail with you. So you'll also have a packed lunch provided each day. At the refugio, you have access to full service bathrooms, hot showers. This goes for camping stays as well. It's really quite luxury for a camping experience, in my opinion. And you also have access to the common spaces inside of the refugio. So if you have a rainy day, you do have a shelter to hang out in. They usually have some fires inside if it's cold, and places where you can charge your phone, etc.
Awesome. Thank you. And then talking about like when to go, like we had mentioned, like the seasons are opposites, there's different kind of reasons you might go in different seasons, but like November to February have like the best weather. This should say shoulder seasons instead of should seasons, but shoulder seasons, what we mean by that is like fewer, the weather might be a little more iffy, but you're going to have fewer people on the trail. So that's kind of the advantage and the trade-off. So and there's also like the wettest season as well from May to August. We really like November. That's when when our trek is planned, like flowers are in bloom, like crowds are still low. So we think that's a great time. Erin, if you want to add anything on to when to go.
Yeah, November is gorgeous. And honestly, just speaking about weather, a really important point is it's super unpredictable. Patagonia is known for being unpredictable. So while you have the best weather, you just really never know. So you want to come prepared for everything. A lot of that just comes down to proper clothing, layers. Again, we can provide a packing list. But yeah, it's really not uncommon to experience all 4 seasons in one day, even during peak summer months. And it makes it really fun as well. Another thing that you will definitely experience are the Patagonian winds, which are some of the strongest in the world. So being prepared for that and open to it would be another tip.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about food in Chile. We always love our food. And it's something that we really pay a lot of attention to in our trips because we feel like that's like such a door to culture and such a part of the experience. So Chilean food has very diverse influences. Like it's got the coastal climate, it has indigenous ingredients, you have European influence, and all of that European influence comes from different parts of Europe. You might have a lot of different like traditional dishes. Erin, what are some of your favorite traditional dishes?
Ooh, oh boy, I really like cazuela, which is a soup. It's really traditional. It's like what your grandmother makes you or your mother makes you when you're feeling sick. And I really, really enjoy that. I love ceviches and any of the seafood dishes on the coast. Down in Patagonia, king crab is also really common, and that's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, so many. There are a lot of like native ingredients like this choclo, like the big like corn, which originally comes from like that region. So many good options. We get asked a lot about dietary restrictions, which we're super happy to accommodate. Very doable for us to do. Like here more specifically for vegetarian and vegan, like your proteins are going to be very bean based. And in native culture and native like American culture, the combination of corn, beans, and squash like they grew together because it was good for the land, but it also includes all of the essential amino acids that you need for like the building blocks of protein. So if you have a vegetarian diet, that combination is really going to like hit the spot. As far as like for gluten-free, like there's corn and potato and rice-based dishes. Those are really good gluten-free alternatives. You will definitely find a lot of flour in Chile, like in the empanadas or like baked goods, especially like in the city and in Santiago, but you do also have a lot of great alternatives if you need that.
Mhm. Yeah, Chile is actually really impressive to me in terms of vegetarian and vegan culture. I think that they were one of the leading in Latin America in terms of vegan and vegetarian offerings, probably vegan. Um, and yeah, we can also accommodate gluten-free diets, but what you said about flour is very true. Chileans love bread.
Yeah, that
If you
European
like
thing.
bread, welcome.
For sure. So some travel tips for you. So if you sign up for our trip, we send you like a comprehensive welcome pack that has like a very detailed packing list for you. We also have like a blog on what to pack for a hiking trip that gives you some of like our favorite brands and our favorite things to pack, like very specifically. So those are, as Erin mentioned, like packing for all the different types of weather. Erin, do you want to just give us kind of your favorite, we get a lot of questions on like which backpack to choose, like having a backpacking backpack and a day bag, and then maybe something that you leave behind in Puerto Natales. Do you want to?
Yeah. And that's a really good point and a very, very common question is like, what do I do with the rest of my luggage while I'm on the trek? Your hotel in Puerto Natales, all hotels in Puerto Natales have a safe luggage storage space. So it'll just be waiting for you upon return. You can leave it in our office, which is based in Puerto Natales. So that's very common. Along the trek, you're going to want to have a comfortable backpacking backpack. The size of that is going to depend on what you plan to bring with you. We do recommend that you hike light. So, you are going to need to bring a towel. So one of those like microfiber camping towels that pack like really small. Hiking clothes, I recommend just using the same hiking clothes every day. They're going to get dirty and stinky. And then you just wear those during the day and have a nice clean pair of clothes for the night. You can shower when you get to your camp. And a small day pack is also really important, something that can kind of roll up and fit in your other pack so that you have the option to kind of take that out and use it. Some backpacks also have, a day pack that separates from the top of the large pack. You probably won't need anything like 60 or 70 liters because you won't be carrying food. You won't be carrying, cooking supplies, for all of the meals. Your meals will be provided. Really, you just need space for your personal belongings, your change of clothes, layers, sleeping bag, water bottle, and your packed lunch every day. In terms of clothing, like I said, layers is really important. Very rarely is it comfortable to wear shorts in Patagonia. It's pretty much an all pants kind of destination. So, your hiking pants, leggings also are fine. Definitely if you're coming with leggings to bring another layer just in case it does get cold. Rain covering, so rain pants are important to have, but not to wear every day, just when necessary. Rain jacket for your upper layers, a base layer that could be a t-shirt. You do get hot hiking. I find the weather in Patagonia to be perfect for hiking because it's chilly enough where you don't sweat too much. And what else is it? Oh, another thing that related to that kind of comfort in hiking in Patagonia, elevation. You're not dealing with high altitudes here. So people who suffer from high altitude sickness or are worried about that, no worries. That's not a factor here. So anyways, going back to top layers, a base layer, short sleeve, long sleeve, both, whatever you're most comfortable with, maybe like a fleece, and then a puffy jacket and your rain jacket. But like Ashley said, we have a packing list as well. Other things to consider, a little headlamp, like I said, your microfiber towel. If anyone has specific questions about this, happy to.
Yeah, totally. And we get really detailed. And one thing I would add to, for if you don't already have a backpacking backpack, like I would go to your like local REI or Patagonia or somewhere and get fitted. Like I'm a small person, so like I need like a small backpack because otherwise it will like break your back. Like you really do want a backpack that fits appropriately to your like body size and type, because that'll make all the difference for you on how the weight is carried. So I would
Very
definitely order.
much so. And at those stores, they'll be able to provide you tips on how to wear it, etc. But if, for instance, you come and you haven't had a lot of time with your backpack, our local guides are also very well versed in that and will help to fit your pack that day to make sure that, you know, you have all your straps adjusted properly and that the weight is distributed the best way for your comfort.
Yeah. Awesome. And then as far as like money and tipping, we get a lot of questions about like how much cash should I have? How much do I need to tip my guides? It does depend on like how many people on the trip or, and which will mean like how many other people are helping out, that kind of thing. But Erin, you want to give some tips on tipping?
Sure. Tips on tipping. So tipping culture in Chile is not as strong or integral as it is in, for instance, the United States. But tipping in restaurants is very common. It is not obligatory, it's optional. And the standard is 10%. Normally, if you're at a restaurant, they'll ask you at the end when they're charging your card, do you want to add the tip? It's not like in the States where you add it afterwards, it's before you charge the card. If you're paying in cash, you can just leave a little bit of extra. 10% or whatever you have is totally appreciated. You don't really need to tip taxi drivers or anything like that. For your guides, tips are very much appreciated. Again, it's optional, depends on your experience. And as our one of our guides always says, listen to your heart. I like the song. It really depends. Guides are paid well in Patagonia, but if they do an exceptional job and you have a really nice experience, just listen to your heart and you can give them a little something as a token appreciation.
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as like safety and street smarts, I mean, this kind of applies maybe a little more to Santiago than like on the trail itself. But,
Yeah.
typical, like your typical safety and street smarts, right? Like watch your back, watch your things, like kind of have an eye on where your phone is and where your wallet is and all of those, like be aware of what streets you're going down at what time of day and if it's dark and who you're with. So I would say your typical level of street smarts is what you want to use. Erin, is there anything else that you want to add or you want to add as being a female in Santiago?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ashley. It's mostly in Santiago and also in Valparaíso that you would want to just be more aware. In Patagonia, it is so safe. You don't have to worry about your safety at all. If you left your cell phone on a bench, someone would try to find you to give it to you. It's very much very community oriented and just very safe. Santiago and Valparaíso do have a little bit, I wouldn't say they're unsafe, but they're just very vibrant spaces. And so you do want to watch out, don't give anyone a reason to take your phone or your wallet out of your pocket, keep it nice and tucked away. We have all of your hotels in places and neighborhoods that are very safe to walk around, etc. And you can always, refer to your local guides if you have any questions about that. But for instance, the group that you'll be visiting in Valparaíso for the cooking class, they're really fun and they'll give you some tips and they'll say to you, it's not unsafe. It's just a very vibrant place to be.
And then, of course, we always talk about ethical travel on our trips, and it will, what we talk about in regards to ethical travel will vary by the place that we visit. But one of the things that tends to be common in areas that have like indigenous populations is we want to be mindful if we're taking photos. And so, just taking a photo of someone without their permission is something that we very much try to avoid. If you're like doing an activity with someone and it's in a more of an appropriate setting, that's one thing. But if you're just like randomly taking photos of people that haven't maybe given you that permission, or there's like a power dynamic between the person, we really try to avoid that. So Erin, do you want to add to that?
No, I don't think I have anything to add, but I do agree.
Yeah, the same thing kind of applies to children also. So like being very mindful, if it's like children far away that are playing, that's very different than taking a photo of a child and it's just that person in the frame. So being very mindful of like who has the power in this situation, who does that photo belong to, and is it an appropriate situation? So things to think about. All right, so we are nearing the end. So we do have our upcoming trip in November and we have some special discounts for you. So I posted them here. I'll be sending a follow-up email with these discounts. You don't have to memorize them, but we have this Chile Live. You can go to the trip page to book your spot for that. You've got like a good almost 2 weeks to decide on that. And then also we have some more events coming up. We'll be talking about Dominica and Morocco. We've got lots more coming up, Portugal. But from here, we'd love to answer any questions. So does anyone have any questions that we can help with?
I thought I saw on Meetup that the trip was in 2024. Is it actually this year? It's in just in a couple of months?
Yeah, that's odd. It's in 2023, yes.
Okay, all right.
Check that if there's like a typo somewhere. We will have it again in 2024 for sure, but the dates that we're talking about right now are 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? You can write them in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask either way. No? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Erin, thanks for coming on the call.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. Well, we really hope to hear from you guys. Don't be shy to reach out with any questions, either, again, regardless of if you're traveling with us or not, we're super happy to help. So just like pop us an email, connect with us on social, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
See ya.